Oh, Canada. President Trump says the U.S. is ending trade talks with Canada, effective immediately. And he's also threatening new tariffs. He posted on social media a short time ago, "We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the U.S. within the next 7-day period." Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans.
Whoa, let's read that. Come on. We have just been informed that Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced that they are putting a digital service tax on our American technology companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country. They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us also. Based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions on trade with Canada, effective immediately. We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the United States of America within the next 7-day period. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, what do you all think about it? I think it was definitely a bad move by Mark Carney and the Liberals. We kept hearing about this digital tax for a while, right? First of all, it's not going to be good for Canadian consumers because companies like Netflix, Disney, what do you think they're going to do? They're just going to up their subscription, right? And I'm not saying that it's unreasonable. Obviously, the country wants to make some money from these streaming services, especially since it's hurting our Canadian streaming services, right? And Canadian stations. I mean, we have kind of a good policy for that. Not a consumer friendly. Like, for example, if you prepay or if you pay the NBA subscription, you're not going to be able to watch any NBA games because we're in so-called blackout zone. So Canadian streaming services and stations have priority over that. So if there's a game on the Canadian station, you're not going to be able to access it through the official NBA app or website, even if you pay subscription. So I think that's not really consumer friendly, but at the same time, I understand that Canada's trying to make money, obviously, right? But in this case, timing's really bad, man. Like, you're facing tariffs from President Trump and you're gonna risk it. You're gonna try to tax more, try to take more money from US. That's a bad move. And given that Carney and his resume as a businessman and a person for the crisis, leader for the crisis, right? No, that's a huge misstep and it's going to cost us a lot. It's going to cost us money because the trade is not just the trade goods, right? It's not just groceries and stuff like this. Obviously, the price will go higher again. It's going to go up. But this might affect oil trade as well, coal trade as well, obviously automobile sector, all of this. For example, oil and just trade in general. 76% of the Canadian trade is with US. And now imagine if they either add tariffs or just stop the trade. They can stop the trade for a month and we're going to be screwed. So yeah, that digital service tax, I think it was mistake or really bad timing for that. Obviously, European Union does it as well. Kind of makes sense. I don't know what the contracts are with to protect our cable station, Canadian streaming services. I don't know anything other than the NBA example and the blackout service, right? But Yeah, they definitely timed it really, really wrong, and now we're gonna pay the price. But yeah, let's continue with the video.
Now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans.
A twist.
I got a lot to ask you. Number one, this is stepping on good news that he had, which I
Right.
think is crazy. But then number two, to explain why he is so upset with Canada, because it was just like a week ago that he and Mark Carney were palling around together as if they were buddies.
MSNBC, eh?
He has for a long time been fixated on dairy farmers in Canada. And he thinks the Canadian government is protecting a relatively small number of dairy farmers in Canada by putting, tariffs and quotas on U.S. dairy going into Canada. And you can see why the Canadian government will protect Canadian dairy farmers, right? Because it's
Definitely.
a much smaller country than the United States with a lot fewer people, and that's a really important political demographic there. So this has been something that has been just the president's been fixated on, that he thinks that these relatively small number of dairy farmers are ripping off American dairy farmers. So that's sort of the basis, the genesis of part of his anger and frustration with the Canadians. But then now there's this new element of digital service taxes that the president says the Canadians are. So now we're back to square one again. The president's saying we're not talking at all, and we're going to in 7 days tell you what you're going to pay us. What's interesting to me is you just watched the president for how long was that press availability today? Was it an hour? Almost an hour?
So, yeah.
It was a long time. He talked a lot about trade. He never once mentioned a snafu with Canada, right? He was really talking about
I don't
other
understand
trade
it because
successes.
he has the success of his, or he's riding a win from the Supreme Court today. He's also going to announce a deal with China,
Right.
Which is our biggest trading partner. Why
Yep.
muddy it up with this? Why make the headline about Canada?
Unclear. And why didn't he talk about it when he had the cameras on him? What happened between that big press availability and then when he went and fired off of this social media post? The other interesting thing, I think, is that you have stock markets back where they started at the beginning of the year, back at record highs. The S&P was down 18% after Liberation Day from its high. Now it's back.
Wait, so can we I want to put the market up. Has the market reacted to this, or are they now
Yes,
just kind
so
of...
the market
okay.
first was enthusiastic about China and about what seems to be progress with China. You had the Dow up 600 points. Now the Dow is up 200 points after this new thing. So everyone thought, the Wall Street at least, thought that they're moving in the right direction. Those big April Liberation Day tariffs, the president had successfully backed away from those. We wouldn't see those all going back on July 9th. And then now this threat about Canada.
I'm always so confused by the strategy. If you can, do
Sure.
you know any of the contours to the China deal?
So it looks like the U.S. is going to allow some high-tech exports. China's going to allow licensing of rare earths. That had been something they agreed on in Geneva, and then the U.S. each side blamed the other for not actually following through. And so now apparently the president says they've signed something agreeing to at least that part of the implementation of a deal.
That was the story we were going to talk about, that alone.
And then,
And yet,
oh, Canada.
oh, Canada.
Damn, what happened with the news? Like, it's not professional at all, man. Really, really weird to see something like this. I didn't watch the mainstream media for last, 10 years, right? So I went from the time when it was crazy professional to this. But anyway, let's talk about what they mentioned. I do agree with one thing. The dairy farmers in Canada kind of don't understand what's the President Trump's issue. Obviously, the tariffs 400%. It's just crazy. But did you see the size of the U.S.? And if you have your own farmers, I bet they're making money of it as well. Obviously, it's better for the citizens. So if that's what he means, sure. Because yeah, if the Canadian milk is expensive, obviously the Americans will try to profit out of it, right? So if it's 400% more than the US milk, that means that the US milk can up the price a little bit. So in the end, I don't think it's bad. Pardon me. I don't think it's bad for American farmers or dairy farmers, right? Obviously, if we look at it from a perspective not a business one, but like, is it good? Emotional perspective, let's say. It's not good that Canada's putting tariff like 400% on something. But again, kind of feel like President Trump is just looking for some scapegoat rather than blaming the American dairy farmers for the price. Because look, if American dairy farmers have a low price, do you really think someone's gonna pay crazy expensive Canadian milk in the US? Especially Americans. I feel like they're buying everything that's made in the USA, and I don't blame them, for sure. But anyway, so that was this point. But other than that, like, MSNBC is just freaking ridiculous. And digital tax, like I said, it's only 3%, but with the amount of the Netflix subscriptions coming from Canada and all of it, like, it's gonna be significant amount. Someone's gonna feel it, and like I said, in the end, it's gonna be the Canadian subscribers who are gonna pay for it indirectly. Because do you really think Netflix will lose 3% of their profit from Canada? No, they're just gonna up the price, and we're the ones who are gonna pay for it. But yeah, the timing was so poor. Like, you're already facing tariffs, you have the trade. It's literally like comparing it to, let's say, just for example, obviously it's not comparable, but you're trying to strike the peace deal between two countries that are at war, and while you're negotiating, one country will bomb the other one. Which happened, right? We know what country I'm talking about. Actually, there's more of them. But anyway, it's just counterproductive, and I'm not surprised President Trump just pulled out of the trade talks and said, no, we have all the cards. Because they do. They do. Anyway, that's it. Like I said, MSNBC obviously biased against Donald Trump. But yeah, let's see what's actually gonna happen. My guess, what might be the plan? It's gonna sound bad. It's gonna sound kind of like tinfoil hat. But look, if President Trump stops all trades with Canada for a month, 3 months, Canada's gonna go bankrupt. And who's going to be the savior? The possibility of the 51st state is going to get much higher. And with what's going on in Alberta, how dissatisfied we are with Ottawa and Liberals in general, and we're literally talking about separation, the chances for separation will be much higher. Because look, for all of these trade talks, we're not going to blame President Trump. He never promised he's going to make Canada great. He never promised he's going to deal with our issues. Do you know who did? Mark Carney and Liberals. And what did they do? Nothing. They just made things worse, and they're lying into our faces how everything's going to be good, and elbows up.